I just thought of an illustration to explain what's going on with the vaccine. It's not to tell you what to do with the vaccine. It's so much is to explain so you understand and have the information to deal with the vaccine.
And Tom, would you tell some that may not know that what your past work station was and the credibility of some of the knowledge you have in being in medicine?
Okay, so I was originally trained in an MD PhD program, ended up choosing not to be in the clinical practice and did biomedical research and was on faculty with the University of Texas and ultimately at one of the deans at the medical center with the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences. And one of the advantages of that is you were on the cutting edge of the newest research, and it would take about 5 to 10 years after the research that you'd actually see in it being applied. One of the things we were seeing in the last days of my career was the development of this messenger RNA vaccine process. I would just sort of give you an explanation and illustration. Just think of the long way we have come from the days when there were pencil sketches of faces of robbers put on wanted posters outside the sheriff's store, to today where the police can have pictures on their cell phones and tablets across the United States, all instantaneous because of the advancement in technology. In the same way, the technology for making vaccines has progressed and made the big jump. And so the illustration I thought I would give is for you guys to picture yourself in your neighborhood, and there's a problem going on with somebody going around bonking people on the head. Okay, and you get bonked on the head. Some people get bonked seriously, and some people are just knocked out. No one really knows what's going on. So your immune system kicks in for the neighborhood, and then the immune system will say it's the local police authority. And they show up, and the best they could do is somebody's described, well, he's about this tall. I think it was a guy, but he had a hoodie on. And they go out looking, grabbing anybody at random they can along those lines. And really, I think the hoodie was from Alabama. I don't want to get
I see it too.
And so that's sort of the natural immune system. If it ran into, it's like the old sheriffs with on the frontier days had the one poster. If the bad guy arrives in town and you run into him, then you could arrest him because you were aware of it. If you never saw, pay attention to the poster, the guy could walk through town and you never see him. And unless there was a posse or a bunch of bounty hunters organized, no one ever pursued it. It was just keeping the town clear. And that's what your natural immune system wants to do, just keep the area clear. So people discovered later that we could do something to stimulate the immune system to form posses and go out after the bad guys. And so what they would do in those days, early days of the thing, they caught a guy and they take one of the bonkers in the police car with them and they drive around looking for other people that look like this guy. And that was the early days of vaccine. And if he got free, he went back to bonking on the head. So that's why early vaccines, people took the vaccines and some of them got sick with the disease because some of the captive viruses got free and were able to infect. So the police got smarter and they say, we can't just carry this guy around in the car with us all the time. We need to do a better deal with that. So they took a photograph of him and they carried around the photograph in the car. And that's what we call the attenuated vaccines. We went through that in the 80s and 90s where you had just a photograph of him and you wouldn't get sick. But it wasn't very effective because policemen would have 20, 30 different photographs in his car and he wouldn't always remember and pay attention which photograph he had to check through and he couldn't always find the photograph. Same way your immune system with the attenuated virus, it stimulated, it was good, but it was stimulated by so many other things at the same time, it wasn't really effective. Then they got better and they decided, oh, I noticed that everybody that's going around bonking head that we caught, they're wearing a particular shade of red hoodies.
Red hoodies.
And so they would go around and they would take a red hoodie and the policeman would carry the red hoodie around town and look around and they grab anybody with a red hoodie, not always matching the right color shade of hoodie. And so that was more general. Then they got even better in their technology, and this is what we're at today. They are now able to take a photograph of the hoodie on the person that's a bonker, and send it to cell phones of all the other police officers. So all your immune cells are getting this image coming on it directly. It's just an image. It's not the virus, so you can't get sick from it. And it's going to, in theory, cause all your immune systems to be on alert for this red hoodie. And when it sees it, the immune cells will respond by telling the other immune cells, we have somebody in the neighborhood with a red hoodie. There may be more than one. And they go after it. So this is, in theory, how this, what you're hearing of is the messenger RNA. Just think of the messenger RNA as just a photograph transmitted electronically to other cells. And that's what they're injecting. It's just that photograph. Now, that photograph to get into your immune cells has to be inside of a lipid grease bubble. And so when you get that shot, that oftentimes is going to make your arm very sore and get some inflammation. Now, here's the catch. With any vaccine, whether it's a primitive form or the more advanced forms that we do now, you really don't know how good the vaccine is, how long it lasts, until you get a large number of suckers. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it that way. You get a large number of people willing to be the guinea pigs. And normally what they did for this is we would use medical students, medical faculty, nurses, everybody in the health science center that we could had authority over, that we could get them to be volunteers. We used the phrase voluntoed. They were told to volunteer. And so that's what they were doing. What the industry is doing now is they're taking advantage of the fear factor. So suddenly what we really have is a drug that has moved to the point that we need to test it in a mass population, and we got people rushing to get the tests. So whoever's getting the shots now are getting tests. Now, on paper and in theory and the scientific data say this test is going to work fine. But what it does is alert the police system and give the police system the information they need to find the bonkers. It does not eliminate the bonkers. It reduces the number of bonkers going around. And so when we're going to have this antigen stop, it will cause your cells to be all on the alert, looking around for this. It doesn't mean you're infected with the virus, and it doesn't mean that you cannot pass the virus on. It will only make your body have the ability to fight the virus quick early on in the game and stage of the game. So if you get infected by 100 of these little bonkers and red hoodies going around, your immune cells will respond, and by their data, somewhere between 85 and 95 of those bonkers are eliminated. That means you're left with about 15 to 20 bonkers going around in everywhere, which should do minimal damage. Okay, so that sort of gives you the picture of what this messenger RNA. Now, it does not tell you have the disease. The only way we can tell the disease is look on people's head for a lump on their head where they've been bonked. Okay, so all the testing that they're talking about is only looking for bumps on the head. They're not looking at who has a photograph on their cell phone of the bonker. Who is the police officer that's going to arrest or go after the bonker? Where's the organized posse that's going after the bonker? None of that shows up on the test to see whether or not you've been bonked or not. You've been bonked or not, that's the bumps on the head. The antigen that they're talking about, this messenger RNA vaccine, is just telling you how many police have the photograph and are organized looking for it. So it's two different arenas, and I thought that might be a way to sort of illustrate what's going on. It's a opportunity for these companies to get these things tested out competitively, because they're 2 or 3 all are doing it to the mass population at the same time, at the same infection rate, at the same season of the year. So then in the end, what you're going to end up throwing up is one of these companies is going to say, hey, look, we were twice as effective than this other company, or we produced more of that. So this vaccine being produced is not altruistic. This vaccine is for profit. And they need to test it, and they're having the unique opportunity of testing it with their competitors. And somebody's going to be able to come out and say ours is better. The second thing about it is to get it out so fast because of the fear and the politicization of the disease itself, is that the vaccine companies have no liabilities. So back before, when we would volunteer for vaccine, if you got sick or died, you could sue the vaccine maker. But under this mass production and this agreement to expedite it, the companies, what they were given is promise that they cannot be sued if the vaccine proves faulty.
Wow.
Okay. So it is a money-making thing for them. They're not trying to be nice and say, here's 100 million doses for you. They're saying we need 100 million people tested on so we can be able to market our product better.
Wow.
So my line of thought, Lala and I are signed up on the list. It's probably going to be a long waiting list. We only get 100 vaccines in our county per week. So we'll probably be on the list for quite some time. But we are signed on the list. If our name came up, I'd have to seriously pray whether or not to do it. On my medical mind, my soulish side is saying it's worth the try. The risks are very, very low. My spiritual side is saying, what is God saying? I'm not afraid to take the vaccine, but do understand that this first 100 million people or so that are being given the vaccine around the world right now, they're the guinea pigs, because we don't know how long it's going to last. We won't know till a year from now if the people that got a shot in December, do they still have the immune system? We don't know. This is the first time this type of immune system of sending the photographs of the hoodie to each of the police officers has ever been done. We don't know if that police officer is going to have 14 other memes on there and forget all about your picture. We don't know how long it will last, okay?
So it's like the flu shot that you have to have every year.
Yeah. And most viral infections are like, for example, the flu, the viruses, well, mutate, they change. That's their way of trying to survive. They're always trying different things. And so it's very likely this corona vaccine will be something like the flu vaccine, where every year they have to put out a new version of it coming out each year. So if that happens, it's not anything to be fearful. The idea with this flu vaccine, this coronavirus vaccine, it sounds scarier because the news media and the politicians speak with spirit of fear. And hopefully you're discerning that when you're watching them, that they speak with the spirit of fear. And so it makes it look worse. This thing is more infectious than the flu, but not more deadly. It's about, their death rate's about the same. Most of the people that die had pre-existing conditions. There is always the random few that died that did not, and unique, and they may have 1 out of 1,000 cases that way, and that'll be the one that's on the news media. And the other 1,999 that died because they had a pre-existing conditions. That doesn't make the news media unless you happen to be for something to advantage for a politician to say, or God. So the death rate is about the same, sitting between 3 and 5%, same as the flu virus. The only difference is this infects more people. So the flu virus affects 100 people, 3 to 5 will die. This one is more infectious, so it affects 100,000 people. So that means 300 to 500 die. So it sounds bigger, but the percentage is still roughly the same.
Wow.